What's up, folks? We had so much fun with that last parabola that we're going to do it again. So, problem number 2, do all the same things. Write the equation in factored conic form, identify the coordinates of the vertex, the focus, the equation of the directrix, and the length of the latus rectum, and then finally sketch the graph. So let's start with this equation. Again, we know it's a parabola because just x is squared. There is no y squared, so this is a parabola. And what can we do with that parabola? Well, I want to complete the square on my x terms, but they are on opposite sides of that equal sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the x squared to both sides. That will get rid of that negative there. So get a positive x squared right there. And then I want to move that 3y over to this side, so I'm going to subtract 3y. So on the left, I'm going to have negative 22 minus 3y equals, on the right, positive x squared plus 8x. And now I can complete the square on the right, which will give me x plus 4 quantity squared. Notice again, that's just half of that 8, and it keeps the sign. But I have changed the equation. I've added 4 squared, and so I need to add 4 squared to the left. Well, 4 squared is 16. The difference between 22 and 16 is 6. If you added 6 to 16, you'd get 22. And the 22 is negative. The larger number is negative, which means we're left with a negative 6 minus that 3y. So let's now factor out and rewrite that left side. I'm going to factor out a negative 3, the coefficient on your y term. Negative 3, what are you left with? Well, you're left with y plus 2. Notice I kind of switched the sides of those because I wanted my y term first, just because it looks a little bit better there. So y plus 2 gives me the same exact thing as negative 6 minus 3y. Distribute that negative 3 in, well, what do you get? You get a negative 3y, which we have, and you get negative 3 times 2 is a negative 6. So clearly the same thing there. That equals x plus 4 quantity squared. What does that tell us? Well, it tells me that my vertex has an x value of negative 4 and a y value of negative 2. What else does it tell me? It tells me that since the x term is squared, my parabola is going to be up and down. More specifically, since that coefficient, that negative 3 out in front of the linear term, since that is negative, it tells me that my parabola is going to be opening downward. So let's figure out a little bit more specifics from that. Well, we know that that coefficient out front, that negative 3, is in the form of 4 times p. So we need to divide both sides by 4 to get negative 3/4 is equal to p. Now, a couple things we can answer with this negative 3 right there. We know that is also going to be the length of the latus rectum. The latus rectum's length is always 4p, except we need to remember that that will be a positive 3 because it is the absolute value of that coefficient, because we're talking about a length, so it should be a positive number. So positive 3 is the length of the latus rectum. The negative 3 is telling us it's opening downward, since it's a vertical parabola, since the x term is squared, and the p-value is negative 3/4. And remember, the p-value tells you the distance from the vertex to the focus. So since it is opening up and down, my vertex and my focus are in line like that, but my focus is going to be my p-value below that vertex. So negative 2 plus my p-value of negative 3/4 gives me a negative 2.75, except I totally just wrote that in the wrong spot. That should be our y value, a negative 2.75. So let me erase that real quick. My x value should be absolutely the same, negative 4, and then my y value is what is changing here, since it's straight up and down, so I get negative 2.75 for my y value right there. Well, where's my directrix going to be in relation to all this fun stuff? Well, it's going to be that p-value above my vertex, so I need to add 3/4 to negative 2 to get the equation of the directrix will be y equals negative 1.25, which is the y value of my vertex, negative 2, plus the positive version of that p-value, so plus 3/4. So I have my vertex, my focus, my directrix, my equation. All I need to do now is sketch the graph, and I have my latus rectum as well. So now I need to sketch this graph. So my vertex is at -4. All of my fun stuff is happening at -2, so I'm going to draw my axes like this. Let's say there's -1, there's -2, and there's -3. And then we can go 1, 2, 3, 4 right there for my x values. All right, now -4 is the x value of the vertex, -2 is the y value, so we get that little fella right there for my vertex. Where's my focus? Well, it is 0.75 below that, so my focus is going to be right down there. Where's my directrix? It is 0.75 above that, so I'm getting that horizontal line y equals -1.25, and I can sketch this little teeny tiny parabola in and call it a day.